Well, good evening, everyone. I'll call this special meeting to order and I'll turn it over to the clerk at this time.
Through your worship, item 2 is declarations of pecuniary interest. Are there any declarations? And if so, please state the general nature thereof.
We'll declare one on item 3, zone change application Z08-21 for 100 Gordon Street, as I am a shareholder in one of the corporations involved in the transaction.
Moving on to item 3, adjournment to public meetings under the Planning Act. And there is a motion that the special council meeting adjourn to a public meeting under the Planning Act to hear from members of the public with respect to the following planning matters. First one being zone change application Z06-21 for 215 Douro Street, zone change application Z08-21 for 100 Gordon Street, and zone change application Z09-21 for 379 Ontario Street, and to reconvene following the public meeting.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Gaffney, seconded by Councillor Henderson, that we adjourn for the purposes of conducting a public meeting. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. Ms. Defoe, do you want to read the items that start the each public meeting?
Through you, your worship. So I will call the public meeting to order. And the purpose of this meeting is to give council and the public an opportunity to hear all interested persons with respect to zoning bylaw amendment application Z06-21. The application affects the property with the municipal address of 215 Douro Street in the city of Stratford. And the order of procedure for this meeting will be as follows. Staff will present the application. The applicant or their agent will then make a presentation. Council may ask questions for the purpose of clarifying the application, but are cautioned not to make comments nor take a position on this application at this public meeting. Registered delegations will be asked for the presentations, comments, and questions. Questions and comments from the Q&A will be read by a clerk's office staff member. The public is advised that if a person has not provided council with oral submissions at a public meeting or written submissions before a bylaw is adopted or a decision is made, the Ontario Land Tribunal has the power to dismiss an appeal. And the public is also advised that comments expressed in written material presented are a matter of public record for full disclosure. Are there any questions as to this order of procedure? Seeing none, we will now proceed with this meeting. So we will now hear from staff with respect to the application. So I will invite forward the planner on this file, who is Victoria Nikolcheva.
Through your worship, good evening. I'm just pulling up my slide here. Can everybody see that? Perfect.
Yes.
Good evening, everybody. This presentation will outline zoning bylaw amendment application Z06-21 for 215 Douro Street submitted by Caroline Baker on behalf of Derek and Alyssa Van, as well as Gray and Stacy Leas. The property is zoned R2-1-7 and is currently used as a triplex. The applicant has requested to change the zoning to a site-specific R2-1 zone to permit a bakery. The property is located on the south side of Douro Street between Wells Street and Queen Street and has an area of 483 square meters. The concept plan on the property is shown, displaying the layout and the parking and entryways. The subject property is designated as a residential area in the official plan, which permits low and medium density residential uses such as single detached, semi-detached, triplex dwellings, and townhouses. The current zoning permits a single detached, semi-detached duplex and converted dwellings, as well as a boarding house. Additionally, the site-specific portion of the zoning limits the converted dwelling to have a maximum of 3 dwelling units. The application was circulated on July 19th, and Engineering, Community Services, and Upper Thames all had no objections to the zone change. The application was also circulated to 112 adjacent property owners on July 19th and was published in the Town Crier on July 24th. Approximately 30 emails and calls were received, all in support of the application. The next steps for this application would be to receive feedback, to obtain all circulation comments, for staff to prepare the recommendation report, and to present this report to the Planning and Heritage Committee. Following the recommendation report, council then decides on the application. I'd be pleased to take any questions that you may have at this time.
Thank you very much. Is there any questions from members of council at this time? Councillor Gaffney?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a question of curiosity. Would this property have been zoned for this type of use at one time? Just by looking at the architecture, it obviously to me was probably a variety store or a small grocery store at one time. Would it have been zoned for that at the time, or is maybe
Through
not?
your worship, I have received a lot of feedback from community members who have told me that it was a past retail store. So I believe at the time it could have been zoned, but I can get back on the recommendation report with that information.
Well, that's fine. I was just curious more than anything. Thanks.
Okay.
All right, is there anything further? Does the applicant have anything at this time they'd like to offer?
Good evening. Can you hear me all right? Okay, good evening.
Yes.
Perfect, thank you. Good evening to Mayor, members of council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Baker Planning Group is representing the property owners, and just want to provide a little bit of additional information about the site as it is today and what the owners are proposing. As mentioned, the site does contain a legal triplex, so there's 3 units, and the owners do reside in one of the units, and 2 are currently rented out. Their intent is to take one of the existing dwelling units, the one being right to the corner that correctly was identified as a former commercial use, and convert it to a neighborhood bakery. It's known as Van's Bakery, if anybody's had some bread there before. This would then reduce the site to 2 dwelling units and a bakery. The bakery is proposed to be about 65 square meters and would include a kitchen, a little storefront to pick up bread that's probably about 12 by 18 feet, and then a storage area. Given the small scale of the bakery, commercial deliveries are not anticipated. It was correctly noted that there was historically commercial uses. The owners did get to the historical, go to the museum and the archives and found that there was a commercial use in there since it was built in the 1900s up until about the late 1980s. And you can see that with the main entrance to Douro Street and the large picture windows that are out front. The zone change application did include a conceptual site plan that illustrates 4 off-street parking spaces can be accommodated. 2 will be for bakery patrons and 1 for each of the dwelling units. And there is as well sidewalks available on all streets and a bus stop providing a variety of ways for patrons to access the bakery. There was a planning justification report submitted as part of the application, and in my opinion, provide the conclusion that the application is appropriate and represents good land use planning. The official plan does permit non-residential uses in residential areas that are complementary or compatible to the area. And in this particular instance, the proposal does not alter the exterior building in any way, maintains 2 of the existing dwelling units, and will offer a small neighborhood serving commercial use. Just also wanted to note, you will see on the zone change, there are a number of site-specific provisions that have been applied for. Those are generally required to recognize existing legal non-complying matters. So things like existing setbacks from the existing building to Douro Street. It is built very close to the right-of-way, but that's an existing condition. Or there's a provision for a minimum lot frontage, again, existing condition. We just thought as the owners were going through the process for this zone change, they might as well clean up the site in terms of the zoning provisions and compliance. So it does not alter the building, does not allow for anything else to be built. Again, it's just, we'll call it a cleanup because it is obviously an older building and an older site. That's all my comments for now, but here to answer any questions of either council or members of the public if they're in attendance. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Baker. At this time, is there any questions from members of council for Ms. Baker? All right, seeing none, are there any members of the public, Ms. Defoe, wishing to ask questions at this time?
So through your worship, there are no registered delegations for this matter. And just looking at the Q&A, there does not appear to be any comments or questions submitted at this time.
Okay. All right. Is there any member of council still wanting to ask a question? And if not, Ms. Baker, do you have any closing remarks?
I do not. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Defoe, I'll turn it back to you.
So through your worship, just double checking that there are no questions or comments submitted in the Q&A, and there still are not. So as this matter has been dealt with, City Council intends to consider this application at a future Planning and Heritage Committee meeting, where members of council will have an opportunity for full discussion of the application after reviewing comments received from the public at this time. If anyone would like to receive further notice of this application, please email clerks@stratford.ca. A video of this meeting will be posted to the city's website, and this public meeting is adjourned. So I will now call the second public meeting to order. And the purpose of this meeting is to give council and the public an opportunity to hear all interested persons with respect to zoning bylaw amendment application Z08-21. And the application affects the property with the municipal address of 100 Gordon Street in the city of Stratford. And the order of procedure for this meeting will be as follows. Staff will present the application. The applicant or their agent will then make a presentation. Council may ask questions for the purpose of clarifying the application, but are cautioned not to make comments nor take a position on this application at this public meeting. Registered delegations will be asked for their presentations, comments, and questions. Questions and comments from the Q&A will be read by a clerk's office staff member. The public is advised if a person has not provided council with oral submissions at a public meeting or written submissions before a bylaw is adopted or a decision is made, the Ontario Land Tribunal has the power to dismiss an appeal. The public is also advised that comments expressed in written material presented are a matter of public record for full disclosure. Are there any questions as to this order of procedure? Seeing none, we will now proceed with the meeting. We will now hear from staff with respect to the application, and I believe Lisa Bridge, our Manager of Planning, is here to make a presentation.
Actually, it'll be Jeff Bannon, City Planner, that will be doing the presentation today. Alyssa is here, but I have prepared the PowerPoint. The zone change application Z08-21 was submitted by Baker Planning Group on behalf of MP Booker Assets Incorporated. The application is requesting to change the zoning of the property from a commercial C2-9 zone to a residential fifth density R5(1) zone to allow the conversion of the building into 7 residential dwelling units. We received the application on July 12th. Planning justification report was submitted with the application, and a draft plan of condominium application was also submitted. The subject lands are located on the west side of Gordon Street, north of Ontario Street. They have an approximate area of 0.13 hectares and a lot frontage of 42.5 meters. The property is designated residential area in the official plan. That designation permits a range of residential uses, including triplex dwellings, townhouse, and low-rise apartments. The maximum permitted density in that designation is 65 units per hectare. The subject property is zone C2-9, and that property allows only a business office and a professional office as the 2 permitted uses in that zone. We have circulated the application. We have not received any objections from any respondents to date. And the notice of the application was sent to 68 abutting property owners on July 19th. And it was in the Beacon Herald, posted in the Beacon Herald on July 24th. We have not received any responses to date. Any other agency or public comments received after the completion of the report will be provided to the Planning and Heritage Committee when a future report is written. And I'm available to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Seeing none, I will turn it over to the agent for the applicant, Ms. Baker.
Hello again. Thank you if everybody can hear me. Baker Planning Group is representing both the owner and the applicant with respect to this application. Mr. Bannon did note that there is a concurrent draft plan of condominium application that was filed with the zone change. The condominium application is required to create individual conveyable dwelling units on title at the land registry office. So that's the purpose of that additional application. Just also noting that the applicant has also filed the required site plan application. They've made first submission, and that's being circulated through city staff. As it was noted, the site is designated a residential area, but site-specific zoning was approved back in the 1990s to allow the Salvation Army to build their offices in this location. And as Mr. Bannon noted, it scoped the permitted uses to just the office use. Thus creating the need for the zone change application to allow for residential use. The intent is to adaptively reuse the existing building to create the 7 dwelling units. Exterior modifications to the site are limited to adding an enclosed rear stairwell for the purposes of a fire exit under the Ontario Building Code, adding Juliet balconies to some of the units, and repainting the parking area. The dwelling units will contain a mix of 1 and 2 bedroom units that would range in size between 700 and 900 square feet. The units will have accessible access. The entrance is at grade off of Gordon Street, and there is an existing interior elevator that would provide access to the second floor units. As part of the application, we submitted a planning justification report, a servicing letter, as well as a phase 1 environmental site assessment. The requirement for an environmental site assessment was largely predicated on the fact that there's an existing office permission, and the Ministry of the Environment counts any non-residential use, whether it be an office or an industry, as requiring environmental site assessment. So that work has been undertaken. The phase 1 recommended a phase 2, given the gas station across the street. That has been completed, and it came back clean with no contamination. Record of site condition has been filed with the ministry. We've received confirmation that the application has been filed and are just awaiting the response comments from the ministry. So that's well in process. The servicing letter indicated that there's existing capacity and services to support the use. And the planning justification report concluded that the zone change was appropriate and represents good land use planning, as it'll provide for the adaptive reuse of existing infrastructure, including a building and services within the built boundary, is compatible with surrounding land uses, which does include a range of residential densities, heights along Gordon Street. It will contribute to a range of housing in the city, and it does conform to the official plan, which specifically establishes maximum densities of 65 units per hectare. And this development is around 55 units per hectare. So it's well within the current permitted densities in the OP. And generally the site either complies or exceeds with the regulations for apartment uses in the R51 zone, including meeting parking. And lastly, with the conceptual site plan, it's been shown that the site can support the 7 dwelling units. There's sufficient area for bike parking, vehicular parking, snow storage, garbage collection, sidewalks, and landscape areas. So that concludes my summary or overview, but again, happy to answer any further questions.
Are there any questions from members of council? Okay, seeing none. I do not believe there are any registered delegations for this application, so we're just going to look in our Q&A, and at this time, there are no questions or comments submitted related to this application. We'll do another round. Are there any questions from members of council? Are there any closing response or comments from the applicant?
No further comments, thank you.
We're going to do a last call for questions or comments in the Q&A related to zoning bylaw amendment application Z08-21 for 100 Gordon Street. Okay, seeing none, So City Council intends to consider this application at a future Planning and Heritage Committee meeting where members of council will have an opportunity for full discussion of the application after reviewing comments received from the public at this time. If anyone would like to receive further notice of this application, please email clerks@stratford.ca. A video of this meeting will be posted to the city's website, and this public meeting is adjourned. So I will now call the third public meeting to order. And the purpose of this meeting is to give council and the public an opportunity to hear all interested persons with respect to zoning bylaw amendment application Z09-21. The application affects the property with the municipal address of 379 Ontario Street in the city of Stratford. And the order of procedure for this meeting will be as follows. Staff will present the application. The applicant or their agent will then make a presentation. Council may ask questions for the purpose of clarifying the application, but are cautioned not to make comments nor take a position on this application at this public meeting. Registered delegations will be asked for their presentations, comments, and questions. Questions and comments from the Q&A will be read by a clerk's office staff member. The public is advised that if a person has not provided council with oral submissions at a public meeting or written submissions before a bylaw is adopted or a decision is made, the Ontario Land Tribunal has the power to dismiss an appeal. The public is also advised that comments expressed and written material presented are a matter of public record for full disclosure. And are there any questions as to this order of procedure? Seeing none, we will now proceed with this meeting. And we will now hear from staff with respect to the application. And I believe we have Victoria Nikolcheva, the planner, online to make a presentation.
Through your worship, hello again. This presentation will outline Z09-21 for 379 Ontario Street, submitted by Michael Costello and Michelle Little. The property is zoned mixed-use residential, MUR, and is currently used as a duplex. The applicant has requested to change the zoning to a site-specific MUR zone to permit a hobby shop. The property is located on the south side of Ontario Street between Truro Avenue and Queen Street, and it has an approximate area of 484 meters squared. The concept plan shows the layout of the proposed use on the ground floor of the dwelling, as well as the necessary parking spaces on site. The subject property is designated as a residential area in the official plan and permits low to medium density residential uses such as single detached, semi-detached, triplex dwellings, and townhouses. The lands are also within Special Policy Area 2, where a mix of residential, commercial, and institutional uses are encouraged. The current zoning permits a variety of residential and commercial uses such as a duplex dwelling, personal care establishment, home occupation, clinic, and business office. The application was circulated on July 19th, and Engineering, Community Services, and Upper Thames also had no objections to the zone change. The application was also circulated to 108 adjacent property owners on July 19th and was published in the Town Crier on July 24th. No comments were received to date from the public. The next steps for this application are to receive feedback, to obtain all circulation comments, for staff to prepare the recommendation report, and to present this report to the Planning and Heritage Committee. Following the report, council will decide on the application. I'd be pleased to take any questions that you may have at this time.
Are there any questions from members of council? Councillor Clifford.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, is that driveway a private drive or is it a shared drive? It's hard to tell on the drawing there.
So through your worship, it's a right of way that they have because the house is directly abutting the side yard on the other side of the home.
Any other questions, members of council at this time? I believe representing the applicant this evening is Michelle Little. Miss Little, are you there?
Yes. Oh, I'm just gonna mute my phone there. There we go. Everybody can hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
Perfect. So just a bit more of details about our application. The property is currently MUR zoned, and it is a duplex when we purchased it. However, we are the only ones in the home. So we're looking to zone for the allowable use on the main floor, a portion of it about 61 meters squared. And the second floor unit will remain residential. The retail store, hobby shop would sell things like video games, card games, board games, and related items as well. There are no additions or alterations to the existing exterior or interior of the building. All of the green space, paved areas, all of that will remain unchanged as well. There is parking in the rear of the building for 4 cars, and that will be available for customers. In terms of the driveway, it is a right-of-way. However, the property next to us does have their own entrance on the other side. So we have been made aware it's a right-of-way due to the utility boxes in the backyard as well.
Thank you. Anything further?
Nope, that's it.
All right. Is there any questions from members of council at this time? Seeing none, Ms. Defoe, do you want to check the public?
So through your worship, there are no registered delegations for this application as well. And looking at the Q&A, there are currently no questions or comments submitted.
All right. Any one more time? Does the applicant have anything they'd like to say in closing?
No, thank you.
All right, Mr. Defoe, I'll turn it back to you.
Through your worship, just confirming there still continues to be no questions or comments submitted in relation to this application. So City Council intends to consider this application at a future Planning and Heritage Committee meeting, where members of council will have an opportunity for full discussion of the application after reviewing comments received from the public at this time. If anyone would like to receive further notice of this application, please email clerks@stratford.ca. A video of this meeting will be posted to the city's website, and this public meeting is adjourned.
Thank you very much, Mr. Defoe. We'll go to item 4.
Item 4 is reading of the bylaws, and there is one bylaw listed for consideration, and that is 4.1, the confirmatory bylaw. And this bylaw requires first and second readings and third and final readings.
Moving first and second reading, Councillor Vasilakos and Councillor Ingram. Discussion, seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, if any, that's carried. Third and final reading, moved by Councillor Henderson and Councillor Ritzma. All those in favor? Opposed, if any, and the confirmatory bylaw is now passed. And a motion to adjourn this evening's proceedings. Thank you, Councillor Ingram and Councillor Clifford. All those in favor? Opposed, if any, and that's carried. Thank you very much, everyone, for taking time this evening. To our staff for their efforts to bring these reports forward. To the clerk and CAO, thank you for attending. Have a good night, everyone.